What's up guys, welcome back. Today we're going to look at the video of the first defeat of Ky'veza hard mode by my girlfriend, who you might know or have heard me refer to as Kaz. This was done on her Guardian Druid at about 685 item level. I'm just going to react to it and talk about things that I like about her setup, about her gameplay, how she does things differently than I do, and even things I don't like to see that I would openly criticize her about. In short, this will be a potentially toxic over-analysis of her first boss kill. She's likely to do the fight again on Balanced Druid and Demonology Warlock, and important to note that she does this of her own free will. I don't yet have any guides out for Guardian Druid, Balanced Druid, or Demonology Warlock, and even if I did, she probably wouldn't look at them until after she had done the fight. That said, I certainly spent some time just hanging out and watching her do the fight, offering both solicited and unsolicited advice. Before we get started, make sure to sub to the channel, like the video to help promote it across YouTube, and certainly leave any comments below about her kill or my evaluation of it. And just to kick things off, I'm going to talk about a few things that I like and don't like about her UI. To be fair, there's more things I like about it than not. Right off the bat, something I don't like is the player and target portraits being down here by the gameplay area. It's certainly a good idea to pay attention to your health bar, the enemy's health bar, any debuffs that are on the enemy, any buffs that are on yourself, etc. And while she does have the buffs in the top right like I do, she also brings her debuff bar down just a little bit to the bottom right of her character frame so she can see it pretty easily just like I do. You typically never have too many debuffs on you at once, and you typically have so many buffs and not enough important ones that you're actually trying to look for to warrant bringing them all the way down as well. And I have tried to move player and target portraits down. This is something I will never get used to. You can even see in my videos, a lot of times I will look up and to my left. That's me looking at player or enemy target portraits. But for the most part, I get the information I need from my KiII nameplate bar and anything on Healbot. You'll also notice that she has Healbot as well as the default Blizzard frames running below that. That's an old habit that I used to do as well, to monitor debuffs and stuff that wouldn't necessarily pop up on Healbot. Even if you have it set to show every debuff, a lot of times there are things that don't show up, and they're always going to show up on the Blizzard frames, and they're pretty low and out of the way and don't obstruct your view of anything else. And I both like and dislike all of her action bars being lower left and lower right. I like how much room that frees up in the middle of her screen, and these are even smaller than my action bars, which I do shrink to like 60% normal size so that I can, have as much visual real estate open as I can. But I also use my action bars to reference ability cooldowns and stuff like that, something that she's clearly more accustomed to doing without than I am. So I can appreciate her playing that way. I think that's very cool. I've definitely tried hiding my action bars or moving them out of the center, and it just doesn't work out to me. Maybe long-term goal, that's something I'll try to do. What's more likely is I'll just shrink them even more, right? And what you're also going to see when she gets into combat is that she's not going to have a bunch of weak auras or additional add-ons cluttering up her visual real estate so that she can see the things going on with the game. She's also going to be hiding her UI entirely during Dark Massacre and the Cup game. One of these she does through a weak aura, and the other one she just manually Alt-Zs to hide her UI. And I will say that her player portrait is far enough out of the way that it's probably not going to obscure anything she's looking at, and the target portrait is still out of the way but close enough, and it's going to be in that same visual area that she uses to look at her debuffs, so no real issues there. It's more of a nitpick thing. And she's using DPS Brann with the Quizzical Device and the Audio Amplification Crystal. I don't use the Audio Crystal much, but I use the Quizzical Device on pretty much all of my characters. It's an occasional 20% damage buff on the player, which is far more valuable than anything you're really going to buff Brann with. I have used that Taunting Crystal on a couple of tunes like Hunter and maybe even Shaman. I can't really remember. But when you're talking about output, that Quizzical Device is probably the best one to go with. The Hatterang does not really do any damage on this fight. You're going to be much better off with the occasional 20% damage buff. The Hatterang seems to be tuned to do way less single target damage than it would in a normal delve, and there's certainly nothing for it to cleave on in this delve. And we'll get going, and I am going to pause it pretty quickly after the poll just to point something out, but for the most part, I'm not going to pause it for very long. So she actually skull bashes on the pole for a charge and then runs through with Tiger Dash just to give herself a little bit more room for those daggers. You'll remember that the daggers are something that I would often use a jump, a blink, and then a displacement, or Chi Torpedo, or Paladin Horse, or anything that's very quick movement speed. The problem you get into with daggers is if you don't make a good amount of movement away from the boss, you're going to progressively get more overlaps of daggers, and that's going to be less and less room you can move around or at least have visual clarity on where you should be. So having her bait those first daggers on the pole right at the player and then running through the boss is actually a very good way to handle it, especially on Druid that doesn't have great I need to be over there right effing now type movement. Though Tiger Dash is very good, it's not instant, it's not a blank, it's not a heroic leap, it's not even a Chi Torpedo. It is very fast, it's one of the better movement things, but for how quickly you want to get separation from the boss, it's an above average tool at best. Druid's not really super cut out for daggers like a lot of other classes are, but she does have Tiger Dash and she does have Stampeding Roar. She'll be alternating those as needed. At the end of all this, I'm sure she would say daggers killed her way more than anything else, and it wasn't until she started getting big separation from the boss, or at least moving from one side of the boss to the other, where she would be completely out of the way of the first or second set of daggers, which not only lets you avoid them, but also helps prevent that overlap, which makes it even more difficult to move over time. Having 2 or 3 sets of daggers overlap and adjusting movements for that is pretty doable, but when you're trying to dodge every set of daggers just in one confined space, you're going to quickly run out of room and the dagger tracks are going to obscure each other, so you won't really be able to see what has already fired off and what hasn't. Let's see how quickly Brann dies. A lot of times DPS Brann will die on the pole. Brann does jump over to his pie slice, but you'll see he doesn't actually drop a portal. And when this happens, you're going to be fine. It's just they're going to equally tug at you. You might have to run in between them a little bit more than you would if there was a triangle. But something I've never seen in like 1,000 poles. And here she hides her UI to deal with the Dark Massacre. She obviously has no problem seeing them. She just does that backup thing where she's constantly strafing or backing up so that she can get a good eye on it and perhaps keep the next 2 or 3 massacres in front of her. And here Brann appropriately drops his portal and she's back into the middle. No problems here whatsoever. One of the benefits of the tank is being able to survive the portal damage. The downside is doing significantly less damage than a DPS would, so the fight's going to be a little bit longer. And here again, we're hiding the UI. You can see a lot of these Dark Massacres. This one's actually pretty lined up, but right here, she's doing a strafe, right? So this mob is in front of her, but you can see she got real good at that strafing while moving and dealing with the massacres pretty intuitively. And you can see right at the end, she started moving away from boss so she could Tiger Dash and maintain distance, which reduces the amount of overlaps and just keeps that first or second set away from her completely. Again, all of those overlaps. And this is, I did this on my Frost Death Knight run, where I did this overlap, this overhead view of the puzzle. This certainly helps if Brann comes in late with a chat bubble. One thing I didn't like about this is her turning her camera before she puts her UI back up or before she starts moving towards the one that she solved. Again, that's just a preference thing. She did the cup game just fine. And she didn't get big separation here. I think she would admit that after the cup game, you know, you do have 5 or 6 seconds of DPS time, but she wouldn't necessarily move quick enough to get away from that and bait those first sets of daggers. Certainly not every time, but I'm sure she gets a little bit better at it as the fight goes. And we got UI hiding for Dark Massacre. No problems in just doing a strafe and a backup. These are all pretty good, but the number 5 you could see was, you know, 5 degrees up. A lot of people say you have to be dead solid perfect with it, and that's clearly not the case. She maintains big movement away from the boss after the massacre. I think she was a little bit more disciplined with that because it's always after massacre, and then after the cup game, you're kind of losing yourself and doing just damage to the boss for 5 or 6 seconds. New massacre up, and let's see how good she does. And she's just always doing the backup. And then she's going to run away from boss with Stampeding Roar. Bates, the first 2 set of daggers aren't anywhere near her, and then sets 3 and 4 are, you know, just a little bit off. And then the last 2 are just kind of nowhere near. Just keeping that distance from the boss, getting to the other side of the boss, really frees you up from having to, you know, make these very small movements and having, you know, daggers 1 inch from you on either side, right? And you can see her belt lightning proc hit. I'm not sure if she did that. I'm not sure if it did it after she solved the clone or not, but I started thinking about maybe that's a way to tell if some like auto damage fired off on the mob. Certainly nothing you could control, but maybe that's a way to get a little confirmation on which one the clone was. But again, I think after you do this enough, the clone game is not something you're going to have the most trouble with. I think it's pretty much always going to be daggers. And again, she's backing up for the massacre, keeping the mobs in front of her. And she never really has to turn more than, you know, 45 degrees at a time. And the movement speed, even just like a hair late, just getting to the other side of the boss, right? So first sets of daggers over here, but you're over here now, right? And portal drops are great. Don't have to be perfect. And she knows you just get sucked back into the middle no matter where you are once all 3 are up, so not a big deal there. Turns the UI off for Dark Massacre again. And she has to do a little bit more movement than she was, or rotating than she did the last few, and she's going to run away for daggers. Didn't get as far as she wanted, and very nimble movement there. That's well done. And again, I don't know what she hides. I think she manually does the Alt-Z for the cup game, and then the weak aura hides it for Dark Massacre. Maybe I could be, yeah, that spinning, right? Like, that would kill me. I couldn't do that. I would start running first, or at least edge towards the one that I know is solved. And again, after the cup game, she's a little bit slow on moving out, right? Just because you have enough time to kind of forget what's going on, right? You're just bashing up the boss, trying to maul, doing as much damage as you can. But just moving to the other side of the boss, right? Like, allows those first couple baits to be completely off, and then you're not dealing with the overlap. And then we got Massacre again. UI goes off. And you can see here, like, she's not even strafe facing this mob. And it is. And you can see this top line here is a little bit closer to straight out from her character. We are 15 degrees off here, and it's not like a criticism. It just shows you how not perfect you can be and still get through the mechanic, right? Though a lot of times she is doing this strafe move where it doesn't look like she's facing it whatsoever, but that's just a product of strafing on a bear, right? They just still look like they're going dead left or dead right. But she does handle the massacres really well. She's very quick to identify which one she's turning to next. And I think more than anything, she probably died to turning a little bit too early towards the next target than not turning early enough to the current one that's aiming at. So well done there. I like that. And she's going to keep backing up and maintain movement while she's dodging. And that gives you that double analog style feel of, you know, if you ever strafed around a room in like Halo or something like that, dates me a little bit. But that 2 points of control really allows you to fine tune that movement. And especially if you're used to strafing and running around and character movement and stuff like that, as she clearly is, then it's almost second nature to a degree. I would always say strafing while manipulating your character facing with holding right click is like the ideal way to move around. And we know she's going 90 degrees to the right, and then what is essentially 180 degrees behind her for this guy spawning in the blue. Eats it, and none of these are like, again, that one was probably dead on, so was the last one there, but you don't have to be perfect, and baits on one side of the boss, runs to the other, didn't get her movement speed out as quickly as she may have wanted. And she moves out, and she knows the portals are going to do all the work for her. She's not concerned about getting back to the middle, right? And she's been pretty fortunate with the Brann hammer cooldown, because that will get Brann killed occasionally. And all of these are... Dude, I love that. Either third or fourth massacre here. There's 1, 2... It's the fourth one. And this movement, right? Like, she's facing it. It's not coming at her at, like, you know, 10 o'clock, right? It's coming at her at 11:45, almost dead top based on how she's strafing. But it looks like her character is pointed way out there. It's just being used to strafing and camera movement and stuff like that. And that one was dead perfect. That one was pretty much dead perfect. And running away, she didn't get the bait to the other side of the daggers, but she did get away from the boss. And that's almost as good, pretty much as good, because that first set of daggers is going to be far enough away from you where, you know, you're going to have a lot of room in between each side of, you know, the dagger lines. And I could be trying to solve this as well. And you see that belt proc goes off. Again, I'm not 6.5 million. That had to be a mole. And again, a little bit late on the movement, but she did move like 90 degrees to the other side of the boss, so that first set of daggers wasn't really anything that she was worried about. And sometimes you do have to be particular on your movements. And back to the middle. Again, you're pretty much just trading, you know, portal AoE phases are easier to live, but you have to do the fight for 2 or 3 minutes longer than on a DPS, right? Everything else is pretty much the same. Depending on your item level, you might, you know, want defenses for Dark Massacre. Like, I used them on my Warlock at 675. But looking back, I probably didn't, as long as I had a potion or two. And easy portal drops. We're going to get Dark Massacre, and we'll see how quickly she moves out after that Dark Massacre, because daggers are like super quick after the Massacre. Here's the first one, second one hard left, then back to the right, then back far left, then back to the right, and then the other one's right in front of her. And she's moving. And she, you know, you could see her like juke a little bit. She was trying to bait the daggers a little bit left and then go back to the right, but, you know, sometimes you're a little quicker than the daggers are, and that's hard to do after Massacre, but, you know, just shows that you're kind of used to the mechanic and you're ready for it. Ultimately, doing it in the moment is going to be what you have to do. But having movement speed, making sure you're moving away from boss, And here she goes. It's a little early, but that was real good, right? And if you are far away from the boss, running around that perimeter, right? You have a lot of baits and they're going to be facing you, but there's going to be a lot of distance in between each line so that the overlaps aren't as severe. Brann probably dies here. Yep. And Brann dying as a DPS on a tank. Look at this. I love that. Look at this first massacre, man. This is so troll. This is so troll if you aren't used to this type of movement. Look at this hit. Like, as they're like charging up, they're pretty much already decided, did you pass or fail this mechanic? And again, she's strafing back and left, but pointing her, character face, within 15 degrees right or left of, this massacre. So I really like the movement. I think it's great. And then turns, and that one wasn't even great. Number 3 was, 4 was okay. Clearly coming at her at a slightly off angle. So again, you don't have to be perfect. And she's moving a little bit early for daggers. Like, you kind of want to be able to see that first set of daggers and then move. But, moving through the boss, moving to the other side of the boss, and or having a movement speed. These are all good practices. You don't have to be perfect. It's just over time, they're going to make the mechanic easier to deal with than, just dodging 2 inches at a time every time it queues up on you. And really good massacre movement. Love that. And she is gone. She's a football field away. This is what I like to do on characters that have that really instant, a blink or a jump or a chi torpedo. All right, let's see if we can do it. Left. Yep. That's the one I meant. I would have said 9 o'clock if I meant the other one. And she's bashing boss up. She knows she has to move for daggers. She's waiting for the first one to go out, right? And she baits it pretty okay. And again, just a 90-degree bait, and then being, 1/4 off of the boss's hitbox is going to be fine. And she knows, let's start. Get as many mauls as we can on the boss. Hydra UI. Knows. I didn't even see number 2, actually. But she can see the massacres just fine. She doesn't have her gamma turned up either, like I recommend. Great bait there on that first set of daggers. And then, you have to have a little bit of care with that movement, but she does that real well. This isn't toxic enough. You can see that brand of Ceaseless Ire at 15 stacks. It's big damage. And again, just always backing up and pivoting. I don't think it's the movement helps you with the facing so much as the, dual analog style of movement helps you with the facing. I don't think it's one. I certainly don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both. Do it. She's a little bit off perfect here. Messing me up. Ooh, I think it got me. Top. Nice. No edit there. There's no cut there, by the way, so. She's convoking. She would probably say that, yeah, I do that all the time after the cup game, is I moved just a little bit too early, but she knew if she kept moving, right, like, she would, again, just have to deal with fewer overlaps and create as much gaps in between the, dagger lines as possible on the first 2. 9%, she's probably like, I hope I don't have to deal with another cup game. She's probably just begging to not have to deal with the cup game. I don't even think because cup game's hard. I just think she wants to end it. That was another massacre that was like, it looked like it's like 30 degrees off, but, she's just facing while strafing. And I think the bear model specifically makes that a little trolly to look at. And we always caught off by Brann a little bit, right? We want to go to that one, but Brann jumps first, and you're just like, okay, portals, you typically have enough time to deal with it. Brann's going to finish it off with the aim shot, and we got Massacre. Probably dies during Massacre. These are all, like, perfect. Those are all dead. She wasn't doing any shenanigans with that one. And there you go. I was about halfway through my Frost DK run the other day, the one we posted, when she got this. I was very happy for her. And we spent the rest of the day watching JJK or something else. Solo leveling? So, we had a good time. And you can see her debuffs off to the right. Mine are in a similar position, a little bit more down left of that, and they're actually a little bit smaller. I think having your debuffs within eye shot of your character is probably the best thing you can do for a UI change. It can eliminate the need for a lot of other things to tell you if you have a debuff, right? You're rarely having to look through more than 2 or 3 debuffs at a time to see what's going on. And, you know, you can mentally filter out Bloodlust, you can filter out the Cloak, and then you have like Survival Instincts procs. There's not much you're looking for on the debuff here. I think the only debuff you actually get is dropping the portals, but just something I like about the UI, and I would always recommend. Way better than having a weak aura that says you have a debuff, you know, and having a different weak aura for every debuff. You just have your debuff bar down there. Very rarely are you looking through superfluous information like you would be by having your buffs down there. Even if you collapse a long duration buffs, you know, with that little carrot arrow at the top, you'd still be looking through a lot of nonsense. There's not too many things you're doing with buffs, especially things that aren't already represented by that in-game like weak aura stuff that, you know, when you have a Maul proc or something like that, you know. You can see hers on the left, that moon. That's Galactic Guardian, right? The increased rage gen, 300% damage Moonfire. That one doesn't obstruct you too much, but like the Maul one, the Tooth and Claw proc, is at the top of your screen. Let's see if we can find one. Right here's not a great example of it obscuring your vision, but you can see, and that might even be the Druid of the Claw. Maul has turned into Ravage, I think it's called, proc. But that's something that I turned the transparency to like 50%, maybe a little bit more than that. That is my potentially toxic over-analysis of Kaz's first Ky'veza kill on our Guardian Druid. I'm also going to upload her kill just by itself, so it isn't ruined by my presence or me yapping over it or pausing or anything like that. But I had fun doing this. I like watching her gameplay. I think she does a lot of good things, a lot of stuff that, you know, we talk about the game a good bit. Her and I both tank for our guild, so we're one of those, you know, super toxic couple guilds that everybody hates. I'm not sure I saw her click anything. I know she had 1 or 2 things she clicked during Underpin. I know she's still clicking like Bloodlust and Potion maybe, but I think she absolutely killed Dark Massacre. Just made it look so easy. Strafing and camera pivoting at the same time emulates that dual analog type of movement that you would get in a first-person shooter kind of. Highly recommend getting used to that because I think it really allows you to trivialize stuff like Dark Massacre when you are really good at that type of movement. Maybe once or twice she sat there stationary while turning for Dark Massacre, and even I don't think like that's the worst thing in the world. I just think when you're using both types of movement, you're going to more quickly get lined up with that Dark Massacre. But I assure you she's going to watch this video before I upload it and give her stamp of approval on it. It's nothing she hasn't heard before. She'll probably be a little surprised with how many good things I had to say about it. And a little bit of lore, I actually met Kaz in WoW at the tail end of Miss Pandaria, early WoD. She became a guild member, brought along a lot of her friends, which are still current guild members, and make up a good chunk of our current raid. And, you know, people that I get to hang out and play with. So she's well aware of all of my mental deficiencies and how much I play WoW and how critical I can be of it. And that it really only comes from a place of me wanting people to make the game easier on themselves. And that's her first Ky'veza kill. She took down Underpin on 4 or 5 specs. She took down Zekvir on 4 or 5 specs. That's Contract Killer Kaz. Super happy to watch that. Had a real good time doing it. Let me know if you guys like this style of content. If you thought I was too nice or too mean or anything like that. Certainly give the channel a sub and the video a thumbs up in support of Kaz because she's the #1 factor in me being able to keep posting content to the channel. I certainly don't think this would be a WoW channel at all without her encouragement. It would just be a 20-year-old Hotshots Golf channel with a handful of videos posted to it. I'm hoping she has a good time watching it. I hope you guys had a good time watching it. I will absolutely see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day or evening. Peace.